Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first malicious compliance story of the day comes from Meow Switch in there. Want me to work for my interview? Will do. Disclaimer, nothing in this post is legal advice. I'm a lawyer, but not your lawyer. Please do not take legal advice from internet randos. Background, I work in a niche-ish area of law called discovery. Basically, when someone starts a legal proceeding, each party gets to ask other parties for certain documents relevant to the case. Sometimes parties refuse to produce certain documents because of reasons like attorney-client privilege. I argue why my client's documents are properly withheld, or the other side's documents are improperly withheld. One day, I saw a job board post from a local law firm looking for a research/writing position with required experience in discovery disputes. This raises a red flag for two reasons. First, local law firms normally do not need to hire full-time R&W people, because over 95% of that firm's cases are very similar. i.e., a personal injury law firm normally only handles personal injury cases, so keeping a full-time researcher is not worthwhile when all your cases are basically the same. When these local law firms need something researched, they either just do it themselves or pay someone else for a few hours of work. Second, this local law firm hired a friend of mine by telling them, start here, work hard, and move up to senior associate in a few years, before promptly letting them go after a few busy months. I go ahead and send my resume over and get scheduled for an interview pretty quickly. During the interview, I gave them a fairly high salary ask, which they agreed to almost instantly. It's a trap.jpg. Then, the partner hits me with the following. We ask all candidates to provide a writing sample before the final interview. Sure thing. I thought I attached one to the application, but let me grab my phone and double check. Oh, not that writing sample. That is too generic for evaluation. Here is a legal question that we want you to research. I see. More than happy to do that at an hourly rate. It should be fairly quick work. No other candidate has asked us for writing sample compensation, and this makes it seem like you won't be a team player. If you aren't interested in the position, just tell us. Let me think about it. So I go home and search a couple of local court dockets, and wouldn't you know it, this firm is involved in a case with a hearing set on exactly the discovery question they want me to produce a free writing sample on. I sent an email back saying, sure thing, I will make the writing sample, as long as it guarantees consideration for the R&W position. They say yes, I write a fantastic memo and send it in. A few weeks go by and I email asking for an update on the final interview. No response. Then I check that court docket and wouldn't you know it, they straight up copy-pasted parts of my memo in the response. I send a demand letter for payment plus fees. No response. I file a lawsuit for fraud. Oh baby, then I get a response. A frothy, salty response. I got called some names, they went on and on about how I was going to lose, and after I lost, how they were going to countersue me. I said, sounds good, can't wait to lose. I guess you never did hire a full-time R&W attorney. I mean, it would be like Babytown Frolics easy to win if you never hired for that position. Actually, it would be even easier if you never even had a final interview for the spot. I'm sure you aren't that dumb though. Gotta check 30 days later. To be honest, I don't know what else this law firm expected. Like, you're trying to screw over a lawyer. They're not gonna go, oh dang it, and then just move on to the next job. They know their rights better than anyone, so they're gonna sue. And because they're a lawyer, they could probably afford it too. Our next story comes from an anonymous poster. We can only get one hotel room now? Okay. Many years ago, I used to work for a company that did a lot of traveling. We're talking 12 to 20 hours a day in a truck with another guy, often for 5 to 10 days at a time. When we stopped at hotels, which was not every night, sometimes you slept in the truck, we would get separate hotel rooms so you would have a little bit of personal space. There was a per diem rate, and as long as we kept the hotel rooms under that rate, it was never an issue. Well, after about 15 years of this, the company suddenly decided that separate rooms were costing too much money. We had to share rooms now, regardless of the cost. The job market was fairly good at this point in time, and a few guys basically quit on the spot, and the rest complained a lot. Now, this actually created two forms of malicious compliance. The first one is, instead of looking for a moderately priced hotel, often the drivers would just max out the accepted rate. For example, often we would drive out of major cities and stay in the suburbs, where hotels and motels are cheaper. Not anymore. You'd find a really nice hotel downtown, and you'd have to pay for parking down there too for the truck, so you expense that also. Then, some guys took the policy a step further, and would walk into the hotel and say, "I'll give you the max rate for this room." They would chat up the hotel desk, explain the situation, and deliberately overpay for the room, spending every cent they could underneath the max rate, just to cost the company a bit more money. The second bit of malicious compliance took a bit more conniving behind the scenes. Shortly after this change was made, it just so happened that the head manager of the company needed to head out on one of those trips, which was a relative rarity. Through some backdoor dealings, a few of us managed to get the most obnoxious, smelliest driver on the schedule with him. This guy was a bit of a trip. Nice guy, but didn't like to shower very often, talk to your ear off, refused to turn on the radio, was really pretty slovenly, liked to watch Prawn really loud on the TV in the hotel room, etc. He wasn't the brightest bulb either, but was relatively competent at his job and easygoing otherwise. After sharing a hotel room with him for one night, the manager decided he needed his own hotel room. We made sure everyone in the company knew the manager could not hack it out for more than one day sharing a room, and this caused some pretty strong strife. A few more good guys quit. Shortly thereafter, they reinstated the policy of individual hotel rooms, but now the damage had been done. Some of the guys really liked staying downtown, so the parking fees for the trucks went up, and the overall cost of the hotel rooms went up too. I can't even imagine spending that much time with another human being. Weeks together on the road, sleeping in the same truck, and then if you get a hotel room, you still have to share with them. So honestly, good on those guys for not accepting that, because that is crazy. Especially with all the long hours and crazy stuff they have to do for work. Our next story comes from MacLeod. The time the airline I worked for lost thousands because they didn't want to pay me $10.50. So, the year before the virus hit the US, I started working for a major airline as a baggage handler. I absolutely loved the job. I just enjoyed being around planes from the ground level. When I started, there were no full-time positions available, so I was working part-time 6-hour nights, 5 times a week. The way it usually works is each gate has a lead, the person with extra training to do the load planning and scanning and towing the planes to the runway as well as guiding them in, and a few baggage handlers. Now, I had only been there a few months, but I was working my butt off and showing I was a team player. I decided I was gonna try to become a lead, even though they usually want you to work a year or so as a handler first. I was confident and ended up passing the training course with ease. The problem was, they had no availability for more leads, so I was put into what was basically an on-call kind of list where they could upgrade me for the day if they needed more leads. Now, whenever they upgrade you to lead, even if it's for a single flight, they have to pay you the extra $1.75 an hour that leads get for your whole shift. Remember, I work 6-hour days, so $10.50 is the cost to make me a lead for my shift. Now, for a few months, everything was great. I was a part-time baggage handler, but I was working as a lead for my whole shift, every shift, and I was loving every second of it. Something about towing huge planes full of people to the runway was just awesome to me. Enter everyone's favorite virus, good old COVID. Within months, the airline industry is tanking pretty hard as nobody wants to travel and get stuck somewhere. Supervisors are being told to cut costs everywhere they can, which makes sense given the circumstances. Cue up the night of my malicious compliance. It's maybe 11 p.m. and I'm on till 1 a.m. Supervisors have sent a large chunk of workers home, and those of us left are being sent all over the airport to cover the flights we do still have coming. I get a call from the office that assigns your flights, and am told to go grab a box and a walkie. the stuff needed to plug into the plane to talk to the flight deck. They tell me to head to the gate, the flight's landing in 5, and to just put in my request for lead. When asked to be a lead, you put it in on the company app, and a supervisor approves your pay raise for the day. I get to my gate, check the loads coming off the plane, brief the handlers on what's coming down, and we all get to our spots to bring the plane in. I see the plane coming down the lane to my gate, and at the same time, my zone supervisor drives up to my gate and asks me to come over. He then tells me something along the lines of, "Hey man, we can't upgrade you to lead right now. We just can't swing that extra expense right now." I respond with, "Okay, so who's going to bring this plane in? Nobody else on the gate is lead trained, and supervisors are not allowed to do any of our work because of the union rules." He then tells me he is going to find another lead to bring in and to just assist him when he arrives. So I'm like, sure, whatever. Now, it's important to note that planes have very tight metrics for how long it can take to bring a flight in and unload and reload for the next flight. The flight pulls up to the edge of my gate and comes to a stop as there's no lead there guiding them in. So the flight just sits there waiting, and the entire gate crew are also just standing around waiting. 20 minutes goes by and my radio I still have on me goes off. The office is pissed. They want to know why the heck I'm holding this flight short and not bringing it in, to which obviously I reply with, "What do you mean? Ex-supervisor told me they couldn't afford to pay me for lead work today, and that he would find someone else." He then asks me if I can please just bring it in for him, and I said, "Sorry, but if you're not willing to pay me to do the lead work, then I'm only going to do the handler work I'm being paid for." As it turns out, they already sent too many leads home that night, and the only ones they did have were all busy on flights already. After about 45 minutes, a lead from 2 terminals over finally strolls up and was able to unload the plane as usual. But that 45 minutes the plane sat idle at the gate cost thousands in extra fuel, plus overtime for flight attendants forced into mandatory overtime from the situation, not to mention all the passengers who were pissed off from the extra wait, who all were comped some credits with the airline for the trouble. I also came to find out the supervisor's bonuses were based on the flight turnaround time, and this 45-minute short hold probably cost him his bonus and a write-up. Edit. I feel I should also add that, as per the company rules, only leads can bring in planes, so bringing in the flight for him while not being designated as a lead would technically also be against their rules. Well, this is some really good malicious compliance. If I was a passenger on that plane, I'd just be livid. The worst feeling when flying, in my opinion, is delays. There's really just nothing worse, especially when you're just sitting on the runway doing nothing. Like you're on the flight back, you land, and it's like, yay, we're gonna get off the plane in 10 minutes, and then you're there for an hour. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I'll see you in the next video.